Hey there, welcome to That Dang Dad. My name is Phil, and tonight I want to talk about a little hip-hop. Let's get this out of the way. I don't pretend to be any kind of tastemaker in the hip-hop community, and while I have a lot of love and respect for the genre, the breadth and depth of my knowledge is nothing special. But I don't think you have to be an expert in art to find meaning in it, and I think everybody should talk more about stuff that moves them. Tonight, I want to talk about a track by hip-hop veteran Aesop Rock. Aesop Rock is the stage name of Ian Bavitz, a New York-based rapper who got his start in the underground hip-hop scene in the late 90s. He got signed to Def Jux in 2001, which put him in the same company as Del the Funky Homo Sapien, LP, Cannibal Ox, Rob Sonic, and Company Flow, if those mean anything to you. If you've never heard Aesop Rock's music, you should probably pause my ass and go check out, I don't know, Mindful Solutionism, or maybe Long-Legged Larry, or one of my favorites, Whales from his Hail Mary Mallon collaboration with Rob Sonic. Yes, I know those are not classic Ace, but his sound has evolved a bit over the years, so I say start recent and work backwards if you like it. I would say Aesop Rock is most known for his expansive rap vocabulary. He showed up in a 2014 study as the rapper who used the most distinct words out of the 85 artists studied. Some people might find it slightly alienating, but for me, I never feel like he's just rhyming to rhyme, so for me, he doesn't fall into the tired lyrical miracle trope. Your mileage may vary on that one. FD Sig, if you see this, feel free to let me know if I'm talking out of my ass. Ace's lyrics cover a wide variety of topics, everything from labor and politics to pigeons and Mr. T. One thing that I think he does better than almost anyone else is what you might call story raps, tracks that essentially function as a short little narrative about something happening in the moment. I first noticed this on his track from 2000 called 6B Panorama, where he raps about everything he can see while sitting on his fire escape at that exact moment. I always thought that was a really cool idea, and I appreciated how he made the mundane feel alive and significant. Another of my favorite examples is Dog at the Door off 2020's Spirit World Field Guide, a track in which Ace's dog gets startled by something on a walk. So Ace fantasizes about how this is an elaborate ambush and imagines all the things that are about to happen to him when his attackers reveal themselves. The song ends on a punchline that makes me laugh every time. The track I want to talk about tonight is another story rap. It's from 2023's Integrated Tech Solutions, my favorite album of 2023, and it's called Aggressive Steven. Tonight, I want to make the case to you that this song can and should function as a kind of, I don't know, lefty parable, abolitionist Rosetta Stone. I don't know what the right analogy is, but I think you'll pick up what I'm trying to lay down here shortly. The song begins with Ace going about his day, grabbing coffee, meeting a neighborhood friend. They decide to go back to his apartment to enjoy some jazz cigarettes when his friend notices some clothing rolled up outside Ace's apartment. In fact, she observes that the condition of the pile seems reminiscent of tweaker behavior. As they enter the apartment, they discover it's been ransacked. All the faucets are on, there's books and vinyl records in the sink getting soaked, and after gazing up into the rafters of the loft apartment, the culprit is revealed with his pants around his ankles. Ace and his friends back out of the apartment and notify the office.
Yeah, hi. So there's a naked guy in my ceiling. The staff look up at me tripping like, oh my god, is it Steven? Who the fuck is fucking Steven?
Turns out, Steven is a local who has been struggling with mental illness and drug addiction. A woman at the apartment complex used to let him couch surf, but as his condition worsened, that arrangement became untenable and Steven was barred from the building. However, this didn't seem to stop him and he frequently snuck inside and had to be removed by police. Speaking of police, two officers show up and ask Ace what he wants to do about it, all while he's standing right in front of Steven. Our protagonist is rightfully weirded out by all of this and asks if he and the cop can talk privately, but the cop refuses to leave his partner alone with Steven. The cop asks Ace if he wants to be the victim, and Ace realizes that this is like a cop script that they have to follow, so he asks what his options are.
He said a felony, B&E, and whatever he stole. We take him down to the jail and they put him back on the street. They just ain't got the kind of resources a Steven would need.
The cop tells him something I myself had a lot of experience telling people. I can hook him up for this relatively minor crime, but it won't go anywhere and he'll be back at it before you know it because there just aren't resources available for him. Ace is incredulous that the options are either to throw a guy in crisis in a cage or just ignore it. But the cop says basically the only options for someone like Steven are jail or death.
That's the bleakest shit I ever heard. I don't even have the word.
It's implied Ace ultimately does not press charges and instead simply returns to his apartment to check on his cat. And yes, the cat is fine. The rest, as Aesop Rock notes, It's just stuff. And there you have it, Aggressive Steven. So why did I want to talk about this? Well, longtime viewers of this channel will recognize some obvious hooks. Speaking as a police abolitionist, this little story depicts a scenario I frequently encountered as a cop, and one that informs my current distaste for law enforcement broadly. The police are a hammer-shaped system that can do nothing for people besides treat them like nails. We spend millions on APCs and assault rifles for cops, and we leave nothing for people who need extra support. We collapse the possibility space for people on the margins, giving them the choice of incarceration or neglected alienation. It's barbaric. And as an aside, I fully believe this story really happened because of one little detail. The officer refusing to give Ace a private conversation. I 100% believe that happened. When a cop doesn't care about a call for service, when he finds it boring and pointless, he will frequently refuse to give even basic customer service. Speaking as a cop who took officer safety seriously, you can absolutely step 20 feet away so that a victim can speak freely without angering the suspect. The only reason for a cop to refuse is to force the parties involved to wrap things up, preferably by dropping the charges. I have seen so many cops be dismissive, cold, and downright rude solely to exasperate a potential victim into giving up. But I've talked about stuff like that before in my previous videos. That's not exactly breaking news over on this channel. Listening to this track during a workout a couple weeks ago, a different aspect stood out to me, possibly informed by the results of a little election we recently had in my country. See, there's two main characters in this story that I want to focus on. Yeah, we have the cops and the apartment super and the friend, but I want to zero in on both Steven and Aesop Rock. On an initial listen, it's easy to focus on Steven both in terms of the damage he caused and the life situation that he finds himself stuck in broadly. The track explicitly calls out the fact that jail isn't the right solution to this problem, that the status quo isn't really working, that Steven is essentially being failed by nearly every available institution. However, sometimes I think those of us with a passion for justice and liberation and radical change occasionally forget something important. While people in crisis are human beings worthy of dignity and care, so are the victims dealing with the fallout from their crises. Aesop Rock, Ian Babbitts, whoever the main character is here, had something really shitty happen to him. Someone violated his sanctuary, ruined his stuff. Even if everything got repaired and replaced, you don't forget the way a break-in can turn your blood to ice water in your veins, the way it makes it hard to relax again for weeks. I first observed this as a police officer taking burglary reports during the holidays. Not only were so many poor families utterly devastated having what little they could cobble together stolen, I saw how it really traumatized the victims, especially women and children feeling exposed and at risk in their own homes. And I don't want to make a crass comparison, but in some ways, the rape of a home can echo the trauma that comes from the rape of a body. It's a big deal and it does matter. And so, while I think Aggressive Steven wisely calls attention to the systemic failures and the social murder Steven is facing, I think it's also important to sit with Aesop Rock as he deals with the damage and to realize that the system failing Steven is failing Ace too. Who's going to help him clean up the mess? Who's going to replace the jacket and sneakers Ace let Steven keep? Who's going to help him replace important documents that might have been destroyed and advocate on his behalf to bill collectors and pharmacies and state agencies while he replaces them? And perhaps most importantly, who's going to give him his peace of mind back? Who's going to help him feel safe again? The answer, systemically, is pretty much no one. The only satisfaction offered to Aesop Rock is the further abjection of Steven.
That's the bleakest shit I ever heard. I don't even have the words.
Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you why Harris lost the election this past November. I think it was a lot of things. Some the Dems could have controlled, some not. But one factor that I observed was this weird unwillingness by establishment Dems to hold space for people struggling under the current economic system. Every time someone complained about the price of groceries, all the usual hacks emerged like Ivy League cicadas to scold them for being insufficiently grateful for the wondrous Joe Biden recovery. Drowning in debt? Well, have you tried looking at this chart that says actually the economy is great, you buffoon, you dullard? I think even radicals can occasionally fall into this pattern. We rightfully want to speak up on behalf of the unheard. We rightfully want to center people on the margins. We rightfully want to call attention to the economic and political causes of crime. And sometimes, ironically, we forget to extend the same humanity to crime victims that we do to those being criminalized. Or at least, sometimes we devote a lot less conversation towards helping them. I don't think this comes from malice or intentional neglect, it's just one of those things that's easy to settle into if you aren't paying attention. I'm someone who believes that police and prison abolition will, along with other radical measures, improve the happiness and safety for the vast majority of people in the community around me. I believe abolition makes them less likely to be the victim of a crime and less likely to fall into antisocial behaviors themselves. I believe abolition will help us all thrive. But some of the people I think this will help have valid concerns. They have honest questions, and many of them have some harrowing stories that deserve respect. People should be able to feel safe in their homes. They shouldn't have to always worry about their kids at school or their purse sitting next to them at the coffee shop or whatever. While I believe that abolition is the answer for those concerns, I haven't found that the elevator pitch for abolition fully does answer those concerns for some folks. So, going forward, I want to start thinking about Aesop Rock in the moments after aggressive Stephen ends. I want to think about him turning the faucets off, fishing his books out of the bathtub, setting his records out to dry, putting stuff back in drawers, and running all his sheets and clothes through the laundry. I want to think about how many days it took him to clean up and get more or less back to normal. And I want to think about that little hesitation, that little beat he probably experienced for weeks every time he put his key in the lock. Because the world I'm fighting for, the world I yearn to see, it's a world where both Stephen and Ian Bavitz have their needs met, their dignity respected, and their humanity celebrated. One of the biggest revelations for me regarding liberatory politics some years back was when I realized that it wasn't trying to give, say, Ian a smaller piece of pie so that Stephen could have a larger piece. Instead, it was about coming together as a community, occupying the bakery, and making enough pie for everyone to feel satisfied. Free healthcare, free housing, free food, free public transportation, you and I and everyone that we care about only stand to benefit from those things. You know who gets hurt by them? Rich guys with yachts, to whom I say,
eat shit, die like it's just for men.